Hey guys, this is Tashina from Logical Harmony. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a review and a demo of the First Aid Beauty Hello Fab Bendy Avocado Concealer. They came out with this pretty recently and I've been getting a lot of questions from you guys about it. So I wanted to share my experience because I've been using it for several weeks, and I'm also going to put in a clip where I use it so you guys can see it in action. If you're curious about this concealer at all, just keep watching. So a few things about this concealer, and I'm gonna read from their website. It says that it's a flexible second skin concealer that provides buildable, weightless coverage with superfood avocado to help hydrate and nourish the skin. This full coverage, buildable concealer provides a natural luminous finish, stretches and bends with skin's movement so it never cracks, creases, cakes, or settles into fine lines, that it has ingredients that help hydrate, while caffeine helps diminish the appearance of under eye puffiness and dark circles. It does come in 7 shades. I feel like the shade range definitely needs to be improved on. It's a decent start. It's not the worst initial shade range I've ever seen, but it's definitely not the best. So I really hope that First Aid Beauty does expand on the shade range because they could do so much better. I'm just gonna be blunt, they could do a lot better. So I am gonna do swatches of these concealers so that way you guys can see what each shade looks like. Okay, so there are all the shades from lightest to darkest, so shades 1 through 7. Today I used shades 2 and 3 mixed together. They definitely need to go darker, I will say that. These work as like a bronzer. I don't know, I can't really speak to how those are gonna work, but they definitely should have launched with more than 7. I'm just gonna say that. I think a lot of people are thinking that. I feel like in this day and age, there's no reason not to. Moving on from the shade range, let's talk about the formula, let's talk about application, and let's talk about wear. Okay, so application, I've noticed it does work so much better when used with the Kona Eye Stick from First Aid Beauty. This is the under eye primer and just lid primer that they launched with it. This really provides a good base for the concealer to stick to. It works well without it, but I feel like it's more buildable and wears better when you pair it with this primer. I definitely haven't noticed any issues with it caking weird or just applying weird. I feel like it applies really smoothly, really easily. I've used it with a beauty blender and a brush. I prefer the beauty blender. I feel like the brush does leave some streaks, and so I feel like personally I end up going over it with the beauty blender even if I apply it with a brush. So that's just the way that I like to use it. It is very thin. It's a serum consistency, and I feel like it's very, very lightweight. I would say it's medium coverage that's buildable. I don't think it's full coverage. I think it's buildable to full coverage, but I don't think it's full coverage off the bat. I think it applies nicely. I think it blends out really well. And I've used it with a bunch of different foundations and a bunch of different setting powders, and I've never had a single issue of it not playing nicely with one of them. And so I think that's important to note because there are concealers I've used where afterwards you kind of have like separation lines right here. And I feel like this concealer works really well with everything. Like I said, if you do want to build it up, if you want it to last a long time, I feel like you do need to invest in the primer as well. That's just something that I've noticed. I think that might be a little bit different for everyone, probably just depending on what your dark circles are like, and mine have been really bad lately, so maybe that's part of it too. I feel like because of that, I'm just expecting a lot more out of concealer, so maybe it's just something I'm noticing right now, and it might be fine for you guys otherwise. But I do feel like it blends out nicely. You can use it to highlight. I've tried using some of the darker shades to bronze, and on my skin tone, it just doesn't work that well. The shade is a little bit off for bronzing for me personally. On other people, it's probably gonna work fine. Again, shade range needs to be improved because the formula is really nice. I really want to emphasize that. I think the formula of these is great, and I feel like there's so much potential for this concealer. And so I'm really excited to see them expand it in the future for that reason. I think a lot of people are really going to like it. Like I mentioned, the consistency is like a serum consistency. It does feel like second skin. It's very, very lightweight. It does wear really well throughout the day. I have not had any issues with creasing or with caking. I do feel like I do need to reapply it throughout the day. It's not a big difference. It's not huge, but I do notice just where I have those darker spots on my face, I have a chroma mascara. I do notice that just where I have the darkest spots on my face, like around right here, that later on in the day, it does need to be touched up. For me, that's not a big deal. That's pretty normal for most concealers, but since it promises that it's full coverage and just lasts throughout the day, I thought that was worth noting. I do think that it does help with puffiness of under eyes because of the caffeine in there, especially when combined with the Kona stick. I've had an issue lately with eye bags bags as well. And so the two combined have been really helpful. They really do brighten and help wake you up. And I feel like that is a really good ingredient to include in a concealer. I think more companies should include things like that just to have those little extra benefits in there. And I do feel like it is a nourishing concealer. The formula does feel, like I said, it's like a serum consistency. It feels very hydrating. It just feels nice on the skin. Even when you powder it, it doesn't feel dry. Like right now, it feels like I have like a lotion underneath my eyes. It doesn't feel powdery at all. It doesn't get cakey. I think the formula of this concealer is really, really good. I do really enjoy it. Again, the shade range is, I feel like, the only thing they should change because I think they can do so much with it. And I think, you know, for the average person, this is going to be a great concealer. I want it to be a little more full coverage than it is, but I don't mind building it up. It builds up really easily. It builds up really nicely. There's no cakiness. There's nothing weird about it. Have you guys used this? Comment, let me know your thoughts on it, and I'll see you next time.